Marketing for the now, marketing for the now, marketing for the now, marketing for the now. 10 minutes, 12 remarkable guests for 2 hours answering a singular important question.
Are you ready, Gary?
What do you think?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to VaynerX Presents, Marketing for the Now. I'm Andrea Sullivan, CMO of VaynerX, and I'm here with Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary, we've got one question today. Do you know what it is?
How are you growing your consumers into fans in 2021?
Let's go. Hashtag Marketing for the Now. First up, we welcome Neda Whitney. She is the SVP and Head of Marketing for Christie's. Neda recently joined Christie's, and it seems there is no coincidence with Neda's arrival and the $69 million NFT sale of Beeple's art. Prior to Christie's, Neda spent 2 decades, working agency side around the world, most recently at RGA as the managing director. A fun fact, Neda thought politics was her future, and she served as a White House intern under the Clinton administration. Welcome, Neda.
Thanks, guys. So excited to be here. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Neda, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Quite well. Thanks for being here. Obviously, exciting timing, given all the buzz in the last couple of weeks. Before I get into the question for the show, why don't you give the audience maybe a 1 or 2 minute background on who you are? I'd like them to get to know you. And for everybody in the audience, I'm extracting a lot from Twitter in today's episode. First, big shout out to everybody on Instagram Live. I know the team is streaming it. The software we use doesn't automatically upload, but the team's holding camera to screens. So Instagram, welcome. Everybody get on Twitter, hashtag marketing for the now. If you have a question, there's the conversation, and there is Neda's Twitter handle next to her name. So to that point, Neda, give me 1 to 2 minutes on you and your career.
Yeah, as Andrea mentioned, I have spent 20 years on the agency side of things, working in New York, San Francisco, London, and Paris at all different types of agencies. Started my career at Interbrand in brand design, and then spent some time in PR, 360, multicultural. And in the past 10 years, I would say I really focused around digital and 360 marketing. So most recently, as was mentioned, I was the SVP Managing Director of Client Services at RGA, where I ran a number of different businesses, some really exciting stuff. I worked on Planned Parenthood, I worked on Uber, I worked on Amazon, and spent the last 1.5 years working on the Verizon business there. So a very eclectic career background, a mixed bag of clients, and never had I worked in the art or auction space until I got a call from the team at Christie's. And it was a call I couldn't refuse. There's so much interesting stuff happening right now in the art and auction world. You guys mentioned the Beeple sale for $69 million. That is just the tip of the iceberg on some of the innovations we are working on here at the firm. And so it was a really exciting time for me to dive in to what we call in the agency world a client side opportunity with a firm like Christie's, and understand how I could help be a proponent for digital innovation, new customers, new clients. I love your question about how we're turning clients into fans.
So let's go into that, Neda. I think, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who might have 10 clients on here, and then there's C-suite executives who have hundreds of thousands. From your perspective, maybe in the macro, and then maybe in the micro of what Christie's is doing specifically, how do you think about that question? How do you think about growing customers into actual fans?
Yeah, I think, Christie's is a 200-plus-year-old firm. So we got a lot of legacy there. And a lot of our business is still based around relationship building. It is core to what we do. And it is that one-to-one relationship building of really knowing our clients, knowing the art and artifacts they're interested in, and how do we meet that appetite. But as every single person I'm sure you're talking to out there is acknowledging, there's always the need to grow the lifeblood of your firm. And for us, that means new entrants into the art and auction space and intersecting with those passion points. So I think the NFT art that we recently sold has shown us that there is a completely new sector of folks out there that can really be engaged in the types of offerings that we have. We had over 91% of the registrants for that sale were new to Christie's. So there's always the opportunity to build that client base. And I think for us, it's finding out what are the passions we can truly service, whether that's with burgeoning spaces like digital art, or today we announced the innovation in our sales schedule for our 20th and 21st century art. So we're going to be splitting those sales to recognize the artwork done in the 20th century and then create a platform for that done in the 21st, where those artists were dealing with really different topics like the AIDS crisis and race and gender and now digital art. So seeing those trends and how they ebb and flow and how our clients are interested in them and mimicking that and being really stewards of the art world in that way helps our clients turn into fans.
How do you think, how do you define a fan versus a client in that sentence?
I think a fan is someone who wants to see what Christie's is doing next and what we're pinpointing. So in our industry, it is a duopoly. And I think because we sell unique art and artifacts, you're always going to want to buy the thing that resonates with you. There's no way that we can procure the exact same item as a Sotheby's or another auction house because they're one of a kind, which is a unique marketing challenge, right? To tell those stories with great regularity and frequency. But I think turning our clients into fans is making them want to hear the stories that we tell and the perspectives through which we tell them. So I think, with this 20 to 21 shift, creating a platform for new artists, that's something that only Christie's is doing, really creating that platform and allowing that art to stand alone from some of the masterpieces that we're also known for in the 20th century. I think with acknowledging digital art and creating a space for it, again, that's something that Christie's did first, and our clients can truly become fans of what we're going to recognize next and open their eyes to.
How do you think a small business can use NFTs to their advantage during this time? Any thoughts on that, given your great background in agency land and business land, just to take a step over here to bring value to everybody who's consuming? Anything stand out? You have a hot take on that? I mean, it's so early. And so, these are more hypotheses than they are, realities just yet, since it's so early. But anything stand out for you if you had you have a best friend who's got a SMB, and they're like, oh my God, you just had that big thing happen. Like, how should I be thinking about it with my coffee shop or my direct to consumer, olive oil, or any thoughts?
I think, listen, I've been on a lot of Clubhouse talks lately. I've heard you talk about this a lot. And one thing that you echo is a lot of NFTs are not going to be the $69 million success. There's a lot happening out there, and we got to be really careful with what makes sense for a brand authentically. I think right now in art and auction, the space that really makes sense is this is something that can replace those certificates of authenticity, can really do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of provenance and making sure that the artwork, we know where it's been exhibited and who has owned it, and create that trail of provenance. It's really, really valuable in the art space. I think for a small business, it's what is the thing with a lot of valuable and intellectual property that you potentially want to make unique to your brand. So if there is something you're doing out there that no one else is doing, how is there a way that you can use the blockchain to authenticate that and to own that in your space? It's, for us, it's really scalable because there is a lot of question marks in the art world around provenance and other things. For a small business, I feel like there's less of a use case unless there's something immediately ownable that you want to make sure everyone knows is yours and yours alone.
None of these things go so fast. I could have another hour. Thank you so much. Congrats on the role. Congrats at the great timing of being in that role, and we wish you success.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Neda. Next up, we have Michael Lastoria, CEO and co-founder of And Pizza, a creatively led, mission-driven, culture-first pizza chain that was voted one of Fast Company's most innovative companies for social good. Referred to by Bloomberg as what Jesus might look like if he walked in a Yohji Yamamoto show, Astoria grounds And Pizza in a commitment to better flavor, quality ingredients, livable wages, and real actions. And Pizza has donated thousands for local causes aligned with the company's core values. Welcome, Michael.
Michael,
thanks for having me. Gary, good to see you, brother.
Great to see you. Michael, first of all, can we NFT your beard? Is that something
I would love to.
Can we have that discussion? It's great to see you.
Proceeds to Fight for 15.
Love. I think I'm really excited to get your take on this. I was excited that you were part of this one. So I'm going to get right into it. Actually, not true. 1 minute on a little bit of background of And Pizza, because I think people should be aware of it if they haven't been yet.
Yeah, so we have 50 locations spanning from Boston, down to Virginia. Think about it. And we're in New York City as well. We have 3 locations and growing. Think about if Domino's had sort of a distant, cousin that grew up in Brooklyn that cares about living wages and environmentalism and really kind of reshaping the way that fast food has been built, right, off of high quality jobs, high quality food under socially conscious umbrellas. So we're doing our own thing, march to the beat of our own drummer, and it's working and working quite well. So we're super excited. We're actually going to open up 25 new locations this year and have 35 on the docket. So look for us in a lot of cities on the Eastern Seaboard to come.
Given such an on-trend message for so many of the humans on Earth, when we talk about the question of like turning customers into fans, how does that play out in your mind?
Yeah, I think a few things. Number one, I think it really helps to be a purpose-driven company, right? Having an ampersand for us that stands for unity, uniting the working class as your true North Star, right? Early on in the pandemic, and this is mid-March, we were the first company to raise employee wages, guarantee employment, strike a deal with Lyft to provide transportation from where people work to the pizza shops, right? Use our food to feed hospital heroes, doctors, nurses, administrators, cleaning staff. And every time there's a crisis, we show up and we use our platform, our brand, and our food to do the right thing by our people and communities. So that really goes a long way. And I think that coupled with, we built our own software stack. Our entire communications platform is done vis-a-vis text message. We have frictionless lead generation and organic lead generation coming into the platform every single day. And then using that creatively to launch text-based flash sales. The way that we rolled out the Hospital Heroes program and Hero Pies is we had a daily lottery for the first 1,000 that text us in starting at 10 a.m. every day, right? With their actual employee hospital badge, we were giving free pizza too. So systems like that work extremely well. I'm so bullish on text message. I think brands are underutilizing it across the board. It's the most powerful tool that we've seen. And we've seen hundreds of thousands of new customers come through the text message platform intra-COVID. And that coupled with the moves that we made, the purpose-driven nature of the brand, and the fact that we had a software stack that we could transition from analog to digital overnight and thrive in a time where it's really hard for restaurants.
The adversity of COVID for a business like yours, what non-scalable behaviors or what little tweaks do you feel you were able to execute on that did create more fandom, if any?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was over communication. I mean, one of the nice things when you have a text platform is you can communicate with your customers instantly and you can share with them.
What, Michael,
I'm sorry
to interrupt. Because now I'm nerding out. Do you have a sense of what percentage of people that come into your restaurants, you have their cell number?
Yeah, it now is around 60%.
Really?
So it's that high. Yeah, 2/3 of all of our transactions.
Are you over incentivizing me randomly walking by a location in New York or Boston? I walk in. Are you over incentivizing me to give you the cell number?
Well, the reason why it happens
is a huge number.
It's huge. Well, number one, 2/3 of our business is digital, right? So people are coming through the platform, ordering, and our entire communications is done through text. And the cool thing is, unlike most brands, when we text out, it's two-way communication. So you can text us back. We can actually change orders mid-flight. So the fact that like the entire platform is text message based, you can't call us, you can't email us. So our entire customer service platform is text.
I didn't realize that. Got it. So the whole communication stack, understood. And literally, Michael, like if I text, I apologize, but I'm now really enjoying this. If I text like, do you think the Jets will win this weekend? Will I get a response, or does that ebb and flow where you got to take care of the problems first, and if there's an overflow, I might get a response, or is it AI? Is there humans behind it? What's the punchline there? Yeah,
it's primarily human powered. Right, there is a little bit of sort of like chatbot, but that's only for basic customer service questions around hours of operation.
What time? Exactly.
Yeah, but you're getting humans, and the reason for that, and eventually there'll be some, artificial intelligence automation, is that it's very important for us to act like human beings, communicate like human beings, because text, the first time someone sniffs out that it's actually not a real conversation is the first time that person is never going to text you again, because they're not going to believe in the system itself. And so 100%. We will absolutely respond to you if you ask who's going to win. And quite frankly, about 20% of all conversations are just that, which is have nothing to do with pizza and everything to do with just the personality of the brand itself. And we love that stuff. And we give full permission, right? We call them the pizza plugs.
You prefer it.
They hook you up. We prefer full permission to say whatever you want.
Talk about fans.
That's exactly right. Exactly. And we have a whole catalog of people texting us post like 12 a.m., which is just absolutely unbelievable. It's like its own like drunk text category. And it's just people, we have a lot of fun with it too. And by the way, it's an incredible job of transitioning from the pizza shops themselves into corporate. Like it's an incredible intermediary job as people get their legs underneath them. And because us as a brand that we hire for personality, now you can work in corporate using your personality primarily to communicate with our customers. It's incredible. And by the way, it's the same platform we use to communicate with our employees. And so talk about having your ear to the ground.
Yeah, I love that.
Every single day we have that two-way communication. So there's never a time and a place where any single person that works for us doesn't know what we're doing, how we're thinking, and how they can get in touch with us.
Michael Drew from YouTube says, hey, Michael, I heard you. What does And Pizza offer that Domino's doesn't?
So, I mean, high quality jobs, high quality food. Right? If you walk into an And Pizza, you'll see an assembly line. So similar to a Sweetgreen or a Chipotle, you can co-create your own pie. And then if you go to order.andpizza.com or download the app, you'll see a whole wide variety of categories. Our skin, right, looks a little bit more like Netflix meets caviar. So pizza categories and categories within that, all kinds of crazy pies that you can stumble across. So it's just high quality ingredients, different flavor, profiles, healthier pies, right? We don't want to be branded as healthy pizza per se, because it's still incredibly indulgent and delicious. And then of course, everything we do from a CSR standpoint is very different.
Talk to me about pizza culture for a second. Have we seen a rise in anything? Like, for example, I enjoy a good slice of pizza, but I'm like totally anti the Hawaiian pizza shit. Like, do not put pineapple on my pizza. I mainly did that because here comes all the pineapple on top of pizza people in the comment section. So I want to see who's pro that. Did we see any trends at your end of a new style, over index, under index, anything we're seeing?
I think three big trends, like indulgent American, only with higher quality ingredients, right? People want like better stuff. Number two, a heavy trend in vegan, right? We have pretty sizable vegan audience that kind of are some of the biggest net promoters of the brand. And the third thing is Southeast Asian, right? Which everything is having different spices. You're seeing the globalization of pizza, like you are everything, play out in a way where people are looking for, because then technically you can put anything on top of, right, dough, and it can taste, right, delicious depending on like where you're sourcing the ingredients from. So there's a lot of flexibility. We built the brand around making pizza accessible for lunch and the globalization of flavor profiles.
Michael, I really appreciate you being on the show, brother. Continued success. You look great as always. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. We love all things V. So thanks, everybody.
Andrea, before we move on to our next guest, I want to just make myself clear here. I'm a huge pineapple fan in a silo. It's when fruit goes into savory. Like I love strawberries, do not want strawberries in my salad. Big fan of grapes, take them out of my salad. Love pineapple actually by itself and even mixed with coconuts for a little pina colada. Do not put it on my pizza. Just wanted to give that clarity to all the pizza.
And if you're trying to eat that recently though, Gary, you got to keep trying.
I'm always pushing new things.
Fruit and savory. All right. Next, we welcome Heidi Zach, co-founder and CEO of ThirdLove, the third largest online bra and underwear company in America. Heidi left her job at Google with the dream of offering a better option, a ThirdLove, where women don't have to choose between comfort and beauty. She is committed to advancing more women in tech and is an active angel investor in female-founded companies. Fun fact, Heidi is truly a superwoman as she's an Ironman triathlete and a mom. Welcome, Heidi.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Heidi, how are you?
Good, and I totally agree with you about the no mixing fruit with regular food, like 100% on the same page as you.
And I'm obsessed with them separately, but when the mix happens, I get a little weird.
Agree.
Heidi, give out 1 minute on what ThirdLove is, and then we'll go into how we turn these customers into actual fans, not just good customers. I want to get into that part, which we haven't yet.
Yeah, so ThirdLove is a direct-to-consumer, 100% online brand. The only place you can buy ThirdLove is thirdlove.com. And we built an inclusive brand. Before that was kind of the norm. I think we've pushed an industry to totally change how they sell bras and underwear. And we really focus on fit. So we're the only brand in the world that offers half cup sizes like shoes. We have 80 bra sizes instead of 40 like the average bra brand. And lastly, we have a fitting room, which is an online tool to to find your size. So that's kind of the core tenets of ThirdLove.
Let me go to two places we haven't touched on yet to create a complete show. And yes, for all the people in the comments on LinkedIn, this is live. It is 12:21 p.m. on Thursday. Eastern. It is live. Heidi, when was the first time you remember doing something out of the ordinary in those early days to create a customer into a fan? Whether it was taking care of a problem with a delivery or something surprise and delight, or had you done any? Hearing your Google background. I always wonder where people go into the black and white, the math, the Excel, the tech versus the gray, right? Like I did something early in my career where I drove a case of $30 wine in a snowstorm to a customer because I was trying to make a point to my 50 employees who watched me leave the store on the busiest day of the year for something that wasn't worth any money. So I'm just curious if you did anything automated or, hand-to-hand combat early in ThirdLove's career that touches on this subject that we're passionate about, which is turning actual customers, not to better customers, but to fans, which is a whole different game.
Huge. I mean, this is qualitative. I think all the best stories are qualitative around becoming a brand that women are like, I'm never going to buy anything else, right? And that's the goal. We had a customer named Hope. She's about 50 years old. This is about 4 years ago. And she emailed our customer service team, which got forwarded to me. And basically in this email, she said, I'm a huge customer. She sent a selfie of herself and her t-shirt bras. She said, I'm 50 years old. I look great. I love your bras. I just got your catalog in the mail. So we were sending direct mail at the time. And she's like, I was paging through it, super excited. And every single person in the catalog looked like they were 30 or under. And I'm annoyed, basically. She's like, that's like, look at me. I look great. Like, why don't you?
Yeah, she's like, fuck you.
Basically, and she was a great customer.
Yeah.
Was annoyed at us. And it got sent to me and my head of creative and I got together and we're like, she is totally right. So not only did we reach back out to Hope.
Keep talking.
Yep. But we said to her, hey, like, listen, why don't you fly up here? She lived down south in Southern California. Why don't you fly up to San Francisco and be a model in our next shoot? And we put her in our next catalog. She was on social media, on our website. So Hope not only as a customer, but became a person that was part of our community, our brand. And from that day forward, we've been much more age inclusive. And that was something that's really important to us. So, you'll see models who are over 50 because women who are over 50 wear bras too. They look great and they're part of our community. And so that was just a moment of listening and changing based on what we heard.
I love that. Speaking of listening of what you hear, I'm reading all the comments. Keep them coming, everybody. And I heard my hoodie was rubbing on the mic, so I took it off, and that's why I have a t-shirt. Sorry to step away for a second, Heidi. What is you're a much bigger company now as you keep building. What is the current state of strategy around turning 2021 LTV, AKA active customers and new customers from customer to fan? Anything brewing, any innovation, anything on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, two big things that are already happening and that we'll continue to do more of this year. One was new categories. I mean, at the end of the day, women and what they're wearing, stating the obvious, they're wearing much more wireless and lounge and all of that. So we've launched all those products over the past month and a half. So that's super exciting. And then second is humor. And I think you could really relate to this. We launched a new campaign called Your Boobs Deserve ThirdLove. And it's women with life-size bras. It's about 2.5 minutes on YouTube. It has over 500,000 views at this point. And when we set out,
I apologize on the 500,000 views, paid media or organic? Because both are awesome. I'm just curious for my own self.
Both. I mean, definitely cuts of this are on TV. So if you're watching women's history, women shows on Hulu or linear TV, you're probably seeing the 15 or 30-second cuts of this 2.5-minute long form content. It's across the board. It's our first fully integrated marketing campaign. So I'm super psyched about that. And when we took a step back last year in the middle of the pandemic, and we're like, we need a new campaign. We're like, what's missing from the bra and underwear market? And what's missing is humor. It's levity. Like sex is has been used to sell bras and underwear, like from the history of woman and mankind, but nobody uses humor. So the whole thing is about like how funny it is that women have these like personal relationships with their bras. So in if you watch the segment, you see a woman, she's on a date, you think she's talking to a guy, it pans out and she's actually talking to her bra, being like, you're letting me down, and eventually throws the drink off. So, it's just like, let's just like be a little more real.
Mix it up.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm talking about.
I always felt that brands and brand managers and CMOs and owners tried to make their brand so narrow, yet we as humans, the reason most people like us is the combination of 4 different things. Oh, I like your ambition and your kindness and a little sense of like, it's fascinating to watch people try to box brands in when I think brands have incredible room to breathe.
Absolutely.
What about, let's flip this upside down to bring people more value on the other side. When have you felt yourself in your life go from customer to fan? I'll give you a second because I really want to give you like a chance to really think this through. Where in your entire life do you think, if you can recall, converting from user, buyer, to something that became more of like an advocate and fan and cheered for the business or the entrepreneur? Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I am very tied to all my angel investments. I won't talk about them.
But you can. I mean, no, listen, I think listen, that's your real life. I asked you the question. Obviously, you didn't put money in just to quote unquote make money. You have an emotional tie, whether to, I heard it in the intro, a female empowerment movement, or you just love the product. So give me one of each, maybe 1 or 2 of the angels. And then just again, maybe when you were 9 and it was Lucky Charms, or 7, I hear you're this crazy athlete. Was there a sneaker that changed your variable, or, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, as an angel investment, I'm an advisor to a company called Bobby. It's a new formula company. It's bringing European grade formula to women and men in the US. And I think there's a huge need, but what they've done really, really well is there's the emotional levity that happens when you're a new parent trying to get your baby fed. And especially if you don't have enough milk, all these things. And they've really, through everything they do, just tried to create that conversation and connection with their community in a way that I don't think has been done before in the space. And it's really, really powerful. And some people hate on it because for different reasons, but they have a very strong stance and a strong voice.
Love that.
I would say most recently as a customer, and I was just talking to the CEO last week. So Bombas Socks and Dave and I were having that. I was telling him I'd like literally just replace my whole sock drawer, just like people do with bras. And so that I would say as a category of me becoming a super fan, and it all goes back to product. Like at the end of the day, it's like ThirdLove, better product. That's what delivers the value to the customer.
Were you aware of him because you ran in similar circles? Did you see an Instagram ad and tried it? Like, do you have any sense of how that went down?
I told him this. It's funny. Yes, of course, I've known him. I met him a few years ago. I follow them on Instagram. I get their emails. I never converted. And one day I was driving. It was on Sirius. I keep hearing his ads all the time. And finally, around the holidays, I not only bought myself, but I gifted it. And then that turned into the whole thing. Love that.
It's so funny. I'm so hot on Spotify's self-serve new ad product. I'm obsessed with audio.
We're doing a lot on Spotify at ThirdLove too. It's been.
I think a voice feels. I mean, this is why radio worked for all those years. So, anyway, Heidi, continued success. Thank you for coming on.
Good to see you, Gary.
Cheers.
Next up, we have Barbara Messing, the Chief Marketing and People Officer at Roblox. Barbara leads the innovation and growth strategy, establishing Roblox as one of the most beloved brands in the world among kids and teens. Prior to Roblox, she was the CMO of Walmart US and TripAdvisor, and she currently serves on the board of directors for Overstock.com and Diamond Resorts. Welcome, Barbara.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Barbara, how are you?
Good.
I mean, talk about Fandom, this brand, geez, that you must be loving life to be at the helm of this, because talk about true passion. Roblox has just an incredible fan base. I mean, this is where the product really just nails this question. But how long have you been there?
I've been Roblox about 6 months.
That's what I thought. So maybe a fun way to start before we go into it, because I think it's gonna be very native to this brand. What's been the biggest shock or interesting tidbit or surprised? Because I know you probably came in you got educated, you did your homework, you did your thing, but you know how it is. No matter what, there's always something once you get in. Anything stand out as a interesting observation 6 months in?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one of the biggest things that I'm really excited about Roblox is how big the ambition is of the brand. I think everyone knows Roblox as kids and gaming, and we're obviously huge with under 13s and teens. I think where Roblox is really exciting is really about this notion of the metaverse, which a year ago, if you were like, tell me about the metaverse, I'd be like, really? But I'm really amazed by just how quickly the metaverse is taking shape and how Roblox is shepherding it in. And I think all these amazing new experiences we have on Roblox is really telling that story about how people are living their digital lives, like very much the way they live their lives in real life. And so I think just that trend and watching it come to life has been kind of mind blowing.
Because of that, and for everybody, this metaverse starts getting into these NFT dynamics. Are you finding yourself trying to explain the NFT craze to a lot of people because you have such depth of context because of the behavior that's always happened in this ecosystem? Are you finding yourself with friends, families, contemporaries? I'm assume you've probably been pinged many times in the last 100 days around this. Is it funny to you that 100% this NFT thing's going to happen because of the human behavior in the metaverse in your world? Like, has that been like a fun moment for you in a way? Because I'm sure for you and the executives in the organization, it's kind of like, duh, of course this is going to happen.
I think what's interesting for us is, virtual lives, virtual currency, virtual items, that is really how Roblox has been built. And I think digital natives really understand that your identity and how you dress and, how you show up with your friends and hang out, so much of that is very native to many people as being just as valuable and important in the virtual world as in their real lives. And so I think that's the super interesting thing is I think there's a set of people where this concept of well, is that real or is that as valuable? Like they don't get that. But if you've grown up and you really feel like this identity you created is just as authentic and true to yourself as it is in your real life, then it feels very natural. And, we have tons of content creators on Roblox. We have an incredible marketplace. And so for us, it does feel very natural that, your attribution, your provenance, that would be really understood to be important. And that, even from the beginning, that notion of really authentic creation has been core to Roblox. So it's been really interesting to see this really take off. You're right. In the last few months, it's sort of one of those topics that's exploded.
But in your career, which is amazing, give us a story or two of really watching with your own eyes an action, whether through marketing, through customer service, of truly targeting somebody from a customer to a fan, which I think a lot of my fellow executives tend to think of that in the terms that I think, which is they see it as a customer to a better customer. And I think there's a big leap to being a fan because now you're an advocate, you're a fanatic, you're almost irrational. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when you get a real insight and understand hey, what are we doing on the brand level to make people really love us more? And are we really understanding what their needs are? Are we really building for them, right? As opposed to what's good for revenue. And I think the best brands really design first with the customer in mind and know that, your traffic's going to come, your revenue's going to come. Roblox is classically built on viral loops, right? So you have the creator economy where you have 8 million creators who are building up experiences that they themselves will love, that they think are cool. And then you have an incredible community of people who are coming because their friends have invited them and they want to hang out with their friends in these experiences. And then, more creators come because they see that that's where the communities are. More people come because there's more experiences, different types of experiences. And so I think that's when it's really sort of built because by and for the community is just the best way to say it. And, in my career, I've been lucky to work on other brands that have also been very community driven. And it's really fun. What ends up happening is they sort of spawn the growth of the brand. And, again, as long as you keep focusing on building for them, I think that really helps.
Barbara, why do most companies and entrepreneurs on this video stream right now not do that? In your opinion, honestly, I mean, I think it's right, because it seems so basic, and you and I, we're big boys and girls now in our career.
Yeah.
We see so much behavior that isn't that. What are the cliche reasons and the watch outs that you've seen in your career of why people don't do that, or things they do, or things of that nature?
I mean, I'm sure I would love to hear your thoughts on this too. I mean, you obviously have built your brand. I mean, super authentic, really transparent. I love seeing what you are posting always.
Let me jump in to give you another second. Yeah, to give you a second to think about for me, it's people are either forced to, because they're a publicly traded company or they work for somebody, to have to overvalue short-term monies and not actually build a long-term relationship. So in your world, you're a major executive and you've got a board or a CEO or what have you, who's holding you accountable subjectively on short-term business goals, which then will create for you not to be able to do that. For a lot of people that are watching that are entrepreneurs, they want to make more money this year to buy a nicer boat or car instead of putting that money back into the business and build something long-term. So for me, the reason I've seen, that we even have to say things like, do it for them, focus on them, for them. Like, I don't want to make another piece of content creative on television or on digital that isn't something that somebody doesn't want to see. Like, the reason people make that mistake is they're worried about the short term. Thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. I do think the amazing thing about Roblox is we have a founder who's been building this for 15 years. And so this is the opposite of a short-term revenue-focused company, which is amazing. I mean, we have been always focused on the long term. And one of our core values is take the long view.
Love.
And again, like if you're building a metaverse and creating a category that hasn't been done, of course. But I agree with you. I think that sometimes people get focused on the short term. Fortunately, that's not the case with Roblox. Awesome. And I even think with TripAdvisor, very founder-based company, yes, very much focused on building for a sustained long-term business. But yeah, you're right. It's very much founder and CEO driven. And I think within the company, though, I think really having the customer at the center, bringing in the insights is really important. And I think that's where, if you lose sight of, what are you trying to solve for? Like, who is the sort of the bread and butter? What's your, magic moment you're creating every day for those customers? Staying close to that, I think, is super important.
Did anybody win you over as a fan, as you, the customer, during COVID, or let's say, if not, over the last 5 years? Anything stand out when I say, when did you become a fan of a brand?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is going to be an obvious one for people in tech, but I think Tesla is an incredible brand, just because the innovation built into the product and the delight factor. I mean, there's some stat where you're really excited and then you get the thing and then it's kind of like, you don't really care. And I think that that is, a daily use product, which is always super delightful. And it's because it's really focused on creating something new and unique and also sustainable. And so I love the values of that, of the Tesla brand, just because I think the product delivers. And I love sort of the sustainability of what Tesla's doing.
Barbara, thank you so much. Keep up the good work. I'm so excited to see what you're going to do through this next journey as metaverse and NFTs become top of mind, top of tongue. Thank you for being on.
Thank you. Bye.
Next, we welcome John Henry, co-founder and co-CEO of Loop. John is a Dominican-American entrepreneur and investor named to the Forbes 30 Under 30 among many lists and awards. Born and raised in New York City, John dropped out of college at 18, where he picked up a job as a doorman. He went on to start and sell his first business at 21. He later co-founded the venture capital firm Harlem Capital, raising $40 million and making 20 investments in women and minority entrepreneurs. He was the host for TV show Hustle on Viceland, produced by Alicia Keys and Marcus Samuelson. Welcome, John.
Thank you for having me.
John, how are you, brother?
What's up, man? Good to see you. Thanks
Great
for having
to see
me.
you, of course. John, let's get right into the beef of it, actually, up front. When you hear the term, like, hey, businesses, you obviously have invested in a lot, you're extremely entrepreneurial, you're a consumer, I think you're an extremely good networker, so I think you're learning from the streets, kind of like I did, more so than, a university of how to do business. And so I'm actually just genuinely curious, how do you interpret this question? Do you believe that companies understand fandom versus just better customers? When have you gone to fandom? What have you done right or wrong in your businesses? What have the 40 investments you made done right or wrong? Give me a John Henry manifesto for 3 to 5 minutes on this.
Yeah, no, I think it's a super good question. I think at the corporate level, my first inclination is to believe that corporates don't truly understand how to activate an emotional response from your customer. And that's because there's an over prescription of assessing marketing via numbers. And I think that at the end of the day, you have to respond and resonate with your customer deeply at an emotional level. So for example, when we look at our stats, yeah, it's easy to look through click-through rates and conversion and shares and likes, but what about some qualitative assessment? What about, when someone takes time out of their day to write a paragraph response, I pay attention. Someone took 2 minutes from their, what they were doing to craft the response. And, whether it was, for what you were saying or against what you were saying, it's that emotional response. So I think ultimately, caring deeply about the customer is what's going to transcend any kind of quantitative assessment of the customer. Of course, you have to have your paid infrastructure in place and all of these things to measure your effectiveness. But ultimately, I think resonating deeply.
Do you think that's a very big challenge for startups since you play in that world, because they're usually trying to get to certain numbers to raise more capital? I have found that a lot of startup founders love to talk this shit and make fun of corporate, and straight up, they're worse at it because all they give a fuck about is getting to a number to get them the next round of fundraising. I have a very funny feeling that you have a real hot take on this because you've been in the depths of that world. Curious your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I learned this from you, to be honest, back in 2014 when I discovered your content and you hit me with the line that was depth over width. And I started to really understand that the fastest way to grow lukewarm is to have lukewarm economics work and throw a bunch of paid behind it to get to scale. It's an unsustainable scale. The true scale that's long lasting is built on resonance and resisting the temptation to want to grow quickly for growing quickly's sake, and instead dialing in your product and service. And for me, we measure smiles, we measure shares, we measure people talking about us. And when you're starting to lock it in, then I think it's a little bit more appropriate to put firepower behind it. So I definitely think that venture is at a crossroads. I think that, the amount of capital going into seed rounds, the average seed round has grown from 1.5 to 2.5 million dollars. The average valuation has gone from 4 to 5 to 6 to 8, sometimes 10 to 12. So like seed has seen as an incredible influx of capital. And I think, shit will hit the fan when it comes to the Series A. There's going to be a Series A crunch, and I think the best practitioners will stand out at that point.
With Loop, what are you trying to do differently on Fandom instead of just customers that you haven't done in your entire career, whether it was to doorman, to investor, to personal brand? Like what have your journeys taught you that allow you to kind of now apply them to your latest, co-CEO-ship, co-founder in this startup?
Yeah, we're going to go all in on community. I really, really deeply believe in community as a moat. And I had the unique chance to chop it up with Miguel McKelvey from WeWork. And he had told me something that really stuck in my mind. He said, John, when you look at your product, if you can develop an array of positive experience, that is how, when someone walked into a WeWork space, it felt fundamentally different from a Regus, because they chose buildings that were on the corner and got light from two sides, and that you can see light from wherever you were and had a cup of coffee always waiting for you. And so in that way, we're an insurance company, but we're a mobile only product, and we move with you through time and space. And that's a really unique opportunity to bring you from the online application that is Loop to some offline activations. So I think really, really deeply leaning into community is going to be the moat. It's going to be why you stick with Loop. For example, I'm willing to put money where my mouth is. And we're opening up 100% of our customers have the opportunity to buy equity in Loop, as an example of, like, we really want to push the mold and really deeply care about the same communities that we're insuring. I think ultimately that is what we're seeing as Fandom, is community. And creating, I think with the NFT space where people are going to be able to get a piece of the royalties of a band or an artist, and with all the
law changes on who's accredited investor, you're going to be able to take advantage of that and create that from the forefront, right?
100%. And we don't need, the community to be our rainmaker. Like, we're still raising institutional capital, but to carve out a 25, 50, 100K tranche in our round and have that go to our same customers so they can participate in the growth with us is super meaningful to me. Because, by the time a retail investor gets access to Airbnb's IPO, you've already missed out on so much value creation. So this is something that I'm super passionate about.
Do you have any concerns about the amount of money that's going to be lost because people are going to think about like, ooh, I missed the IPO of Coinbase, and yet you and I know 99% of these businesses are going to go out of business. These are very high risk, investments. It's funny. I started getting excited about NFTs. Half a year ago, I started talking about it louder 90 days ago. And about 15 days into talking about it, I'm like, oh shit, I've got to make sure that everybody understands this is Internet Stock 2000 and 95% of these projects are not going to be good investments or are going to have a big bubble burst with supply and demand issues. And then maybe long-term, any thoughts on that? When you open that up, are you going to try to go, because you could lose your community when there's a down round and things like, you might have, people think of all the upside, like, yeah, we're going to have an awesome company and we're going to go public and everybody who's an early user is going to make a ton of money. Imagine if you were an early user of Uber, you would have made money. But the problem is when the economy turns and you have to do a down round and everyone's like, yo, I put in money and, how do you think about that things? Because there's a way to be, we're talking how to like make enemies, not fans. You think about that?
You know what? I hadn't even considered the potential of a down round, which just tells you that I'm in like.
I love it. You're like, yeah.
No, but I think I think
the hedge up front is important. Be like, yo, we think we're gonna win, but do not get confused. This is not like buying a stock on Wall Street. This is a very, very, very high risk. We think we're gonna take you to the moon, but invest through real education. We'll give you as much information as we can.
Yeah, I resonate with that messaging. And I think ultimately, we have the most skin in the game. I mean, I'm putting my blood
it's your life.
This. And I think one good note too is that the community is likely less interested in the profit outcomes and more interested in the idea of ownership and equity, which has definitely hit the cultural zeitgeist, especially for communities of color. You want to be part of whatever it is that you're supporting. And I think it's a cool vehicle to do that. Although we're not.
I want to make sure that people don't get destroyed on ideology, because you're right.
100%.
Not only minorities and people of color, youth. I mean, if you were 13, the amount of 13 to 18-year-old boys and girls in America and around the world, but in America, because it's an entrepreneurial DNA, that view themselves as entrepreneurs, emerging influencers, and investors is fucking staggering. It's like hard to find one that doesn't think of themselves as at least one of those three, if not all three. And that is talking to a 45-year-old male who lived that life at 13 to 18 and couldn't find anybody to even believe in anything besides college. I think I'm bitter because I would have been flexing like crazy in grammar school if this was like the ethos.
And I wonder what that output means for like the next working generation. Like employment has shifted so much. It's mostly a work from home economy, and it's going to be exciting to see. But I just want to say lastly here that content strategy has played a really, really big part, and we subscribe to the volume strategy as you've preached for time, and just like the real output of a content strategy is when you go to local spaces, and people approach you and they have context on what you're doing. Social is the actual plumbing to human connection in today's age. So thank you for having me. It's been super, super great.
It was great to see you.
Looking forward to it.
Keep pushing.
More jamming. Peace.
Andrew.
Next, we welcome Dino Bernacci, CMO of the Cleveland Browns. Dino has made a career engaging with brands he believes in, holding rock star positions, including the CMO of Mazda and leadership positions at Harley-Davidson and General Motors. And now the NFL, his dream job since he was a kid. One fun fact, his greatest passions other than his family, sports, and music are data and comic books.
I like that.
I need a better opening after listening to John, for crying out loud.
Dino, you have the best opening. Let everybody who's watching this knows exactly what's about to happen. This is going to be 10 minutes of pure explosive fandom. This is actual fandom that might have customers instead of what everybody else is trying to go to. So I'm excited you're here. I've got all sorts of feelings and conversations that I want to have with you, but how are you, my friend?
I'm great. I was looking at what's one thing that doesn't look like the other. It's me in this group. Yeah, because we have, I won't say fans, we have fanatics. They're just raving fanatics that love everything about this team.
Yeah, I think to that point, flip it on me. Knowing your background, Andrew just mentioned it. This is the first time, and to your point, I do think you're different. Roblox, maybe a little bit, but not to this level. You are starting from fan, then customer, in a very, very, like nobody on this call will ever achieve the fandom level that you sit at the helm of from a marketing standpoint. But that has its ramifications, especially when the organization has gone through what this organization has gone through over the last, many years. What are the downsides of extreme fandom when there's every year everybody's disappointed except for one team? Obviously, last year was a great year, especially by Brown's standards over the last 30 years. Give us a little insight into that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know a lot of brands are criticized. Ours is always out in the open. And by the way, you might read about wins or losses when it comes to others. You definitely hear about wins or losses when you're a team and whether you make mistakes or what is said or done. There is not a bigger stage you could sell me on than the NFL. And the fact that we are on that stage and we have to address our fans after every single game. Yes, we sit in front of media, but who do you think we're really talking to? It's our fans explaining how the game went, why it went a certain way, what we're going to do differently. Listening to the previous individuals, they talk about emotion and rationalization. There's zero rationalization when it comes to sport. It's all passion.
Dino,
all love.
I am literally bizarro reverse Gary. In real life, high energy, but incredibly practical. Just like wildly when you get to know me. That's why I've built good businesses. Jets, Gary? I love people. I love people. 8 years ago, that's 2 minutes ago. I'm 37 years old 8 years ago. I'm walking after a Jets game. A 12-year-old child wearing a Tom Brady jersey is walking by me. And Dino, I hip checked the kid into a fence. This is abuse. This is assault. His dad turns to me and wants to engage, and I look at him, Dino, and say, "What the fuck are you gonna do about it, Nick?" That is not a normal person.
That's an obscene amount of commitment, which a lot of fans have, and we've been around for 75 years, Gary. We've had some great runs and we've had some struggles, and the name of this team is a Cleveland Browns, right? Cleveland. And that's, we are part of the community. We talk about community, which a lot of people think of social. We are a pillar in this community. And people want to be a part of it. And this is the one thing you can really be a part of. You can wear the jersey. You're going to cheer like you just talked about with all of your heart for something. And that passion and that love is what so many brands try to proclaim. And it's really hard. There's a select few. There's Apple that people just love. I was at Harley Davidson and I was telling you, they're fanatics. They love that brand. And when you're a sports team, especially on the biggest stage, almost in the world with the NFL, I mean, it's a distinct honor, but I'll tell you, it comes with a lot. And so what do you do? What do we do? You can take away the name Cleveland Browns. It just heightens or elevates what we have to do as a team. And I'll say even a brand, because it's simple, Gary, and I'm a simple guy. You got to listen, you got to learn, and then you got to leverage. And who are you listening to? I'm sorry to
interrupt, but I have a really interesting question. Unlike a lot of businesses, when you're talking business with brand sponsorships, people buying suites, what you just said is exactly right, but is dramatically more controllable in other businesses. You are on the business side. and you've got these business conversations, and the person on the other side is pissed because you went 4-12, or you went 7-9, or talk to me about the variable of, like, with Harley Davidson, like, if they didn't love the latest release or something, you can go and really talk to the company and be like, hey, can we talk about the handlebars or this and that? With the football team, you can't walk to the GM as the CMO and say, I need you to trade out the safety, or why didn't you sign Carl Lawson this week? You can't do that shit.
No, but let's talk about sponsors, because I think that's a really good one.
Please.
You can't, you're right. I can't control, as much as I would love to, what's on the football field. And they're very glad that I'm not controlling what's on the football field, because they do a better job. But I can control how close I get us to our fans. I can control the amount of engagement, whether we perform or we don't perform on the football field. I can control what I can give as a sponsor in connecting with the Browns. Because last year was amazing, but it's a moment in time. We're 75 years of rich history that people love. And whether we're performing or not, as long as we're out there playing and trying, we're gonna sustain that love. Now, I understand when the field doesn't perform, it's like when a product fails you. Are you going to immediately walk away, or how is it that you're responding to your fan base? What are you doing or showcasing, encouraging that this is a moment in time that we're learning, that we're improving? It's candidly, if you have a poor product, it's a poor product. You can't run away from it. If you do, it's a lie and it's not authentic, and people are going to call it out. I think it's what you do in those moments, and candidly, what you share and you say with honesty and earnesty to those individuals. You're right. We had a rough drought for a period of time, but man,
Dino, that's an understatement.
Well, listen, it was a rough drought for a period of time. I think that's
one of the great droughts of all time, Dino.
It is. It is. But you know what? Our fans didn't walk away.
No.
Our fans stayed behind us. They came to the stadium. They wanted more. And the thing that at least, our ownership has been able to showcase and prove is we've been putting those puzzle pieces together. And I think it, Gary, like any brand, nothing turns over, overnight. Nothing and doesn't. But if you make good decisions, you leverage those, you showcase those, you talk about those, you build, dare I say, content in and around them, you can have people embrace and still believe in who you are.
And this, it also then crosses over, even in adversity, you can cross into this different place. I mean, I still believe that the Red Sox and Cub fan base was the most interesting because of the nature of the drought. I have always adored Browns and Lions fans because of, and as a Jets fan, with that adversity, right? Like, to me, that is, you actually compound authentic fandom in times of adversity.
Without a doubt. And I'll tell you this, if anything I can leave you with is we produce our own shows and content. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, the X's and O's stuff works great. But you know what? One piece of content has stood above all others. It's a property we call Building the Browns. And it's the human side of this team and this teammate that we do every single year. And when you learn who these men and these people are, you can't help but even get closer to the team itself. You feel like you begin to know who they are.
And you know this. One of the great misrepresented humans in our modern American society is the athlete. 98% of these men are the kind of men that you want your daughter to marry. They're the best. The headlines and the extreme mainstream media coverage over the last 20, 30, 40 years has people incredibly confused on the quality of the man and women in WNBA and soccer. Like, it really breaks my heart, actually. It's something I'm very sad about. I think people go very cliche on football players and others. And meanwhile, the discipline, the kindness, the community service, the humanity, it's absurd, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely, you're right. I'm telling you, having dealt with this organization and the players, you want to talk about the most giving individuals
100%.
Who really to the community as well as to their teammates, let alone what they put on the football field, is extraordinary and truly are extraordinary individuals. You're absolutely correct. And our goal, to get more audiences to love the Cleveland Browns, to get passive fans to become active fans and active fans to become evangelists is getting to know this team better and getting them closer to their team, because truly, Gary, it's their team.
I love it, Dino. Thank you so much. Good luck this season.
Thanks, my man. Good to talk to you.
Next, we have Alli Webb, founder of Drybar, Squeeze, and most recently, Becket and Quill, podcast host of Raising the Bar and New York Times bestselling author and guest shark. Alli was recently recognized as one of Inc. magazine's 100 women building America's most innovative and ambitious businesses. A fun fact, she's passionate about love. After a rough divorce and major life reset, she just got engaged to the love of her life on Sunday. Welcome, Alli.
Andrea, I'm so mad, Alli. I was going to come hot with the congratulations. I saw the photo. Andrea, get back on here. I'm very upset. You've completely
sorry, I love this one.
I wanted to show you that I saw it. I was so in it.
Thank you guys. Well, I appreciate it. It's listen, it's nice to hear from everybody. I'm actually in the process of writing like a memoir, which feels weird because I feel like I should be 80 writing that. But I literally last night was writing about the really dark year, like, and the specific time in that year that was really, really hard for me. And it's just funny to relive it and where I am now compared to where I was then. Life's wild, right? As you know.
Long and has so many opportunities for so many twists and turns. Alli, thank you for being on.
Yes.
Let's go to the Drybar days. Now
Yes.
that we got the incredible excitement out of the way. Talk about real fans. I mean, I remember it just vividly living in the world, seeing, oh, wow, this is a fan reality. When did you notice customers becoming fans? Did you think about that? Did it start off as like enthusiast, like bigger customers, but then you're like, wait a minute, there's fandom here. What's been your relationship with this notion of customers into fandom?
Well, I don't think I realized, what we had kind of inadvertently stumbled upon in creating Drybar. And, very quickly it would like caught on. And to your point about customers becoming fans, it's like, I realized that like, not only do people love Drybar and the experience and getting a great blowout, they really loved like everything about it. They loved my story. I mean, obviously we were catering to women and I was kind of this underachiever who like found amazing success. And, thinking about coming on here today, it's like authenticity and relatability. I mean, for the first like 5-6 years, I mean, I was in the stores all the time and I was talking to clients all day long and I would tell them my story if they wanted to hear it, and I would talk to people and, I must have done this thousands of times. It just like, I loved it and they loved it and it built brand loyalty. And they wanted, not only did our clients love the experience of Drybar, but they wanted to get behind the brand because they liked what the brand stood for. They liked that it was like a mom, an entrepreneur, a self-made woman at the helm of it. It was like all of those things. And when things went sideways, and they did, if someone didn't like their hair or we had to raise prices or we had to do things that kind of sucked, we came at it with this very authentic approach. Like, we're going to be transparent with you. If we mess up on your hair, we're going to tell you we're sorry and we're going to publicly tell you you're sorry. I remember, over the years when clients would publicly like, back then when people were tweeting or Instagram, if they'd be like, I came to Drybar and I didn't like this and I didn't like that, I would publicly respond and my team would be like, why are you going to draw more attention to this? And I'm like, well, first of all, because it's important that we tell this woman that we're sorry and we want to make it better. And it's also important for other people to see that like, we recognize that we fuck up and we just want to fix it, and that I think that authenticity and being real, like we're not perfect, we're human. We're doing our best here and we're going to continue to do our best for you. I think all of that, and I could tell you so many more stories, but all of that stuff has like really created that brand loyalty. And I think that people felt really connected to me, to the brand. And I think that's where it really all started.
When you navigate your world, because you've had these successes and built a brand so authentically around this genre, mm-hmm. Have you found yourself post this experience with Drybar being more hypersensitive to the way brands and businesses do react? right?
Oh
Because that's, I feel like that happened to me. Yeah, I could see, right? Like, I'm like
I can't walk into a business without being like, are you guys kidding me with this? Like, I'm giving you my money. Why are you treating me this way? Like, it's actually always been a thing because my parents had their own business, and my brother Michael Landau is my business partner, and we grew up in this mentality of like, the customer is king. You treat the customer like gold. That was ingrained in us as kids. So even pre-Drybar, especially like working in the salon business, and the way people were treated if they weren't like a celebrity or they didn't have the right latest handbag, and like the salon culture really bothered me. And so, yes, I'm so hypersensitive. I think I'm more sensitive now to brand because I learned that through Drybar and through my ex-husband, because he's such a genius when it comes to creating that brand, that now I'm like, it's like you could make 3 little changes and your business would be so much better, and it's like, yes, it drives me crazy, and I want to go in and fix so many stores I walk into.
What about the reverse? What about in the last year or 2 or 3, or you could take us way back, a brand that really actually converted you into a fan instead of just a customer? Any stories on that front?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's sometimes, when you walk into a place and they bend over backwards for you. And if to my earlier story, it's like if something goes wrong and they figure out a way to fix it, and you feel like somebody who's working there really cares about it. I mean, I was just in a store this past weekend. I was shopping, and, shopping is like, we're just being able to start doing that again. I was so happy the store is open. I was shopping. This girl was great, and she was bringing me clothes, and she was really attentive. And I asked her, I said, "Are you the owner?" And she said, "No, but I really appreciate the compliment." Like, of course she did, because she made me feel very taken care of. She was bending over backwards for me. She was giving me options. She was engaged, but not annoying, and it's like she had that right balance. And so I naturally assumed she was the owner, because that's usually what you get from an owner versus an employee, which is really the rub and the hard thing about having, a business like ours that has 4,000 employees. It's like getting, it's hard.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Listen, I spend most of my time on HR and how people treat each other. Mm-hmm. And even at 1,300 or whatever we are in VaynerX now, it's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's just, it's like, how do you get, it's hard to get people, if they don't know it, if they don't know what they don't know, and if they've never been treated a certain way. I always had this like fantasy of taking all of our employees to like, the most high-end hotel where the hotel, like the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton,
where they could taste it.
Yes, where it's like, oh shit, people are really amazing to me here. And you've experienced that. I've experienced that, where you go to a place and you're so well taken care of, and it just feels so good. And and I always wanted our employees to experience that, because if you live it, you can then give it back.
We both grew up with the same mentality, with the luxury of having parents that have these businesses. Like, to me, same thing, like customer over my own self. Like, forget about employee, like, period. Yep. What would you tell, because there's a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs listening, not just executives here. Do you feel that obsession of fandom for customer is a disproportionate superpower in year one, when you're a tiny, tiny business and you are relying on that word of mouth? I feel like I have noticed people going from year 0 to year 1 that a lot of people from a hospitality mentality, whether they went to Cornell and hospitality school, but then started a business, or parents that had a family business, that it's like that first year where like fucking every interaction is like everything. Like, you're so fucking appreciative, and you so desperately need that person to create some word of mouth. So has seemed to be, I'm blown away by people opening a store and not going ham on their first customers and taking it for granted. And I see those businesses lose a lot. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is like, you have to keep the momentum going one way or the other. And I mean, that was a unique challenge for us. It's like recreating that moment where it's like not just you as the owner, and I think that's also like really empowering, like our managers in all of our stores. We would give them like a budget that was just like, do what you want with your, with your staff, like in terms of like, buy them Pinkberry on a Friday, because it's like busy in the shop. And, I think a lot of that starts that brand client loyalty and fan, it's like if your employees are really happy and they love what they're doing, then that just permeates into the rest of the business. That was something that we would really try to, once we got so big, try to empower our managers to be owners, and I remember having conversations with managers over the years, and they'd be telling me something about the shop that they run. They'd be like, so in my shop, and then they'd be like, oh, I know it's yours, it's not mine. I'm like, no,
you love that.
Yours.
I love that.
Like, no, I want you to have ownership.
Foundational for fans. Foundational.
Yeah. So if they had that love and it's like treated it like their own, they were not only going to treat their employees like their own, but then the clients, and they take ownership in it, and they take pride. And that, I think, is the thing, is getting, whoever's running your business, when you get to that point of that you're so big that you can't be in it every day, is that pride is, and it's hard to come by.
I love it, Alli. I think you really laid down some real core foundational pieces here. Thank you for your time. Congratulations again. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Next up, we welcome Michelle Harmon-Madsen, the CMO of Accuweather. She has held the senior-most roles at ShopperX Lab, Fresh Direct, MediaVest, and 19 Entertainment, where she led sponsorship for American Idol and So You Think You Can Dance. A couple fun facts about Michelle. She's a mentor to 4 women each year, and she can dock a 50-foot yacht. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Andrea. Great to see you, Gary.
Michelle, it's great to see you. Before we get into anything, why is weather so hard to actually predict? Like one of my, like I've been friendly through the years with a weather man or woman or two, and it's like, I find it to be one of the most fascinating things on earth. And since I have you here now and I've got this 10 minutes, I just, I figured you probably have the answer now at this point. Like, what a wild game where people have like massive conviction of what's going to happen tomorrow with incredible data. And yet Mother Nature's like, nah.
Mother Nature is a wonder into herself, correct? Right? I mean, you can't make anything of more wonder. I mean, you think about this past week, we had huge snowstorms in Denver and Wyoming, breaking all kinds of new records. And then we've got the Southeast, which unfortunately some really, thunderstorms, severe weather, and tornadoes. But I think it's really, what I love about the weather is it's universal. And, it's something that touches everyone. So today in New York, you and I, we've got kind of a little bit of a rainy day. So maybe our energy isn't quite what it's used to. I know, right? But I will tell you, my daughter is a huge fan of a rainy day. It's her favorite day. Or I might prefer the snow. But to me, thinking about, as you're talking about, listen, it impacts everyone. I'll tell you a quick story. So when I was thinking about coming to Accuweather, I came home from having some discussions, and I told my daughter, who's in high school. So at the time, I think she was a junior or so in high school. And I said, listen, I'm thinking about this opportunity with Accuweather, and here's what I'm going to do. And she kind of stopped me cold. And she said, Mom, weather impacts everyone. That's cool. And I thought to myself, she was right, because it does. It impacts us all in ways that you don't even expect.
I love that. When you think about fandom from a customer, actually, you know what? Spend 1 minute to explain to people who are your customers, because I think that might actually, matter.
Yeah. No, when I think about our customers, it's interesting even asking the question, thinking about it, because to some extent we'd say, gosh, everyone potentially could be our customer, because it's a global brand. We've got people everywhere. But I think what's also important to think about is why people come to us. And that's, to me, what always kind of hits my heart. It's not, sometimes they want to know, hey, what is going to happen today? What is the forecast? But oftentimes it's, they may say, gosh, this is my want. I want this, but it's more about what they need down the road. So I will say, you may come today, right now after this, you may say, gosh, I need a break. I need to get outside. And you're going to take a look about, is it raining the rest of the day, or can I get outside and get a walk, do some exercise? But you may also look at, all right, what am I going to do this weekend? What am I going to do next weekend? Can you plan some other things around it? And so I find that our audience are really, they're active, they're participants, they're doing things. And whether that is gardening to exercise to, frankly, you want to get the kids to the park and go to the grocery store during a pandemic, it's about being active with your life. And those are our fans and our customers.
Do you think a lot of people actually, you by nature of your product, makes sense that you were able to go to that why? I think a lot of brands, a fashion brand, like what am I trying to express to the world, or a food brand, like why am I actually eating that? Do you think that the nature of this business, because obviously you've done other things in your career, actually there's a big advantage there that forces you and your other leaders to really, really probably spend a ton of time on why. And do you think that's a competitive advantage?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we are a purpose-based business. There's no question about it. And so thinking a lot about the why is really important to us, because it's about, listen, I want you to enjoy 72 and sunny. You know, that's fantastic. But we really want to think about how can we help you make really smart decisions for you and your family to stay safe. And that's a different kind of proposition. And so thinking about why and how we can better communicate that and better, you know, tell you about the impact is really important to what we've got to do from a marketing perspective as well.
If I was the CEO and came to you and said, okay, I need your number one KPI for 2021, based on where we are right now, is to turn more of our customers into fans, and left and said, get back to me. Obviously that's very kind of gray.
Yeah.
And if I abruptly left, you're like, this fucking jerk, you know, like, well, how do I convert? But like, if I actually said it in a nice way and we sat together, what would you think about doing? How do you do that?
Yeah, well, let me back up. I'm going to tell
Please.
you. So last year, I came on board literally 2 weeks before we sent everyone home for COVID, but we were, which was happening to everyone, but we were getting ready to launch a big launch for us. We were creating the new, newly redesigned Accuweather app. And so to some extent, we were basically taking all of our current fans and we need to make them be new, you know, and we of course want to grow it. But one of the most interesting things about, all right, we're bringing creative in-house, we've got to brainstorm from remote, all those things that you weren't used to doing, was we actually launched a beta program for the app. So we literally over 100,000 users around the world who were engaged. And these were fans, these were new, these were techies, these were early adopters, these were people who just said, gosh, you know, sign me up. But what was so interesting about that experience is we really gained unique insights on what was important to them. So everything from, you know, we changed the product roadmap. We actually said, listen, let's reinvent or re-put forward things that made sense to them based on feedback. We changed and really rethought about how we were going to be thinking about messaging for marketing. We implemented different customer service in different ways because, gosh, it wasn't the questions we were expecting. And so it was really about being attuned to what the customers were. And we are still following some of that roadmap today. And so when we think about customers, it really is, I don't want to take my eye off the ball. I want to keep them forefront. And how can I make the rest of the organization be as passionate about the customers as we are?
I've been enjoying this question. What brand has made you a fan in your life? Whether as a young girl, recently, anything stand out as a time you remember going from maybe a casual user or a heavy user or a lapsed user or a non-user into fandom?
No, I immediately think of two. One is I have to give some credit to Delta of late with their continuing to do the middle aisle of vacant. It's amazing how many people are saying, I want to go visit a loved one, but I'm flying on Delta. And I think that's really interesting that they really
they're giving up some of the dollars on that, but they're winning that game.
I think so. I think
it's tremendous. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to bring a lot of value on this show because a lot of people are mid-market and lower market. And we have these big wig corporates. So a lot of that is a huge statement, Michelle. Thank you for that. Giving up some short-term dollars to massively over-deliver for your customer builds real brand and long-term will really matter.
Yeah. And it's amazing how many people have brought it up in conversation. Have said like, my gosh, I'm really impressed they're still doing the middle seat. And that's, anyway, I think it's, you know, a lot of the airlines get, you know, a lot of flack, but I think that's been a big deal.
By the way, Michelle, real quick on the airlines getting flack. Yeah. I think it's the greatest showing of human entitlement in our society. Like so many people are scared of flying. So much of what delays are built on are on overly aggressive safety protocol. And people like lose their mind. And I'm like, this is so crazy. We are so lucky to be in a society where right before all of COVID, the Wi-Fi is not working. And I literally heard the collective of the plane go, huh. And I'm like, the fact that we even have Wi-Fi on a fucking flying piece of metal in the air, the fuck's the matter with these people? Like, I actually think the anger towards airlines is the greatest show of spoiled culture in the world. I really believe that. Sorry.
It really
just had to say that.
You make an interesting point. It really is first world problems because I think, you know, a lot of us, you know, you got to remember, like if you think about, you know, safety, you just even like it's got a phenomenal track.
Like, what do you like, Michelle? Like, it's way safer than driving a car. What do you want them to be like? Man, we're not quite sure about the wing gap, but fuck it. But Michelle and Gary are going to be upset if they're late. Let's just go with it. Like, what are people talking about?
It'll be interesting to see if people really change with all this stuff going on. And like, I feel like the importance of family the last year and those connections, you wonder if people will take a little bit of a deeper breath moving forward, because I do think people are bursting at the seams to come out right now. They're like, oh, just get me anywhere. So it'll be interesting to see if we see change, and will people be a little softer, gentler, or will we be a little more edgier?
I think that's right. Michelle, so much fun. Great to see you again. Wishing you success.
Next up, we welcome Jamie Gutfreund, Global CMO of MGA Entertainment, a high-growth global children's entertainment and play company with brands including Little Tykes, Rainbow High, and the #1 toy in the world, LOL Surprise. Prior to MGA, Jamie held top positions at Expedia, Microsoft, CAA, WPP, and Hasbro. And a fun fact, Jamie's a passionate fan of the New York Giants.
Oh, I was holding every ounce. Though that being said, Jamie, Vayner Sports represents Leonard Williams, and he just signed a big contract with your beloved Giants, so we can connect on that. And real quick, I apologize. I rarely do this, but Matthew Amir Richardson said, but Gary, we pay for it on the plane point I was just making. Yes, and you pay for food, and sometimes it's 15 minutes late, and you get mad. This is a plane. You're in the air, Matt. Like, do you want them to not triple check or make sure planes don't crash into each other? Anyway, Jamie, a real pleasure. Toys is one of my favorite categories. So, and I love your background. This is off to a good start. How are you?
I am so happy to be here today. This feels normal, whatever normal is after the last year, but I'm so excited. And we have a lot of friends who keep telling me, tell Gary hi.
Same. So, your name's been brought. I was really excited you're part of this, and I hope it's the starting point to our friendship. And you know, being a passionate football fan and being in the toy category so much, you really got my attention. I'm a huge toy advocate from an IP standpoint, collectibles. I'm sure NFTs are running through your head every single day now with all the IP opportunities there. This is an easier conversation for you or the CMO of the Browns because you actually have fans, and then it's like almost business backwards versus a lot of the people we're referring to, which have customers that are trying to turn into fandom. What are the watch outs? What are the pitfalls? You've got this great career. You're at this company, that you've been at toy companies in the past. In your incredible experience, what is a tried and true method to get customers into fandom? And because we've seen this too, where do great brands lose fandom and just start getting back into customer? What are some of the missteps? Just curious, just knowing we have your perspective on that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Sports is such a great metaphor for fandom. And I also think investors are another. And I think if you look at both of those, it's all about the product, right? And we start, I mean, I'm really lucky. So at MGA, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the founder, Isaac Larian. And 40 years ago, he had this passion for product. And that's what's carried this company through for 40 years. So just like sports or a financial product, it's got to be about really good quality. So if your quality gets fucked up, then that's going to be a problem. And you have kids, right? You have I heard tell that you have a 7 and 11-year-old, right? So you've been buying a lot of toys.
I know all about these things.
So when you get that product home, if it's not amazing, you know it. And the hardest fans, forget sports fans, kids, there's no faking it. It's either they love it or they don't, and that is it. And you spent money, and if it's not great, so we really take a stand of making it an experience. And I know that sounds like BS, but it's not. It's like, get the package, get the box, get the unwrapping, the unboxing, all of those things. And then really trying to make sure that we're over delivering. And Isaac always says, it's like, our profit margin could be a lot better if we didn't spend so much on the toys, and we don't want to disappoint kids. And I think that's job number one.
It's smart. It's clearly founder-led. It's all the same cliche things you hear, because in 80 years, whoever's running this company is not going to have that same DNA. You see it a million times over. You hope, but it's very hard. The people that create those things tend to give up money in the short term because of their depth of passion for that thing. With all this SPAC talk, Jamie. I'm getting bombarded. Take Vayner SPAC. Take Vayner. I'm like, guys, gals, you do not want me to take my company public, because the first time I have to be on an earnings call as a public CEO and some nerd from Harvard and a hedge fund says to me, why did your margin go down this quarter? I'm going to be like, I don't know, fucking nerd, because I don't live in an Excel sheet like you. I'm running a real business and I'm trying to build it for long term. And that when I hear you talk about that, that excites me. And to me, that over everything is how you build actual fans.
Yeah, well, short term, long term, right? And we have this phrase, it's like venture consumers. So people want to feel like they know what's going on in the company and that they trust that you're taking care of what's important. And what's important and what works for a public company doesn't always match. That's exactly what everyone's going through. A lot of companies that have gone public have seen what that's like, because you spend so much time working
appeasing the market,
all that stuff, and you can't really make the decisions. And I think what's interesting at MGA, which is frightening and also really powerful, is the attention to detail, down to the minute of like the window is closing, Isaac, and he's still tinkering with the details of the toys, and it drives us all crazy. And it's literally to the last minute, and we're like, we're gonna have to get a plane from Hong Kong or from our factory in Ohio and ship this stuff out, and we're gonna make less money. And he's like, it's got to be perfect. So that's kind of where we are. I think the other thing for us, and again, you have kids and you're so savvy about the world of the internet, is this idea of privacy and taking care of kids. We've been on this really interesting journey. We work very closely with a company called Super Awesome that was recently acquired by Epic.
Yep.
And I think privacy, creating fans when you're dealing with families, privacy and being compliant and really making it safe for kids, that is quality and privacy. As I think that's going to be a big differentiator, and that is something that we're talking about every day, all day. Interesting statistic, I heard that every day 170,000 new kids go onto the internet for the first time. Right? It's amazing. Do you let your kids go onto the internet? Do they go to YouTube? Where do they?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that the internet thing is parents' excuse for not building self-esteem and parenting properly, and that kids are going to be living in this world heavily, and the internet's not the demon. It's the actual work that parents have to put in to actually build a framework to allow their kids to absorb information. I don't know what fantasy land parents live in when kids have phones at 11. The hell do you think they're looking at school? Or like this naivete and lack of accountability, Jamie, of parenting, that everybody's like, fuck Facebook, or you. I'm like, fuck you. Teach your kids self-esteem, like put in the work. So anyway, I got my own very interesting, passionate point of view on this. But because we lack accountability and on a parenting framework, and I think we are asking the world to parent. And so I'm the beneficiary of the greatest mother that ever stepped on earth. And I know what that meant. And
I'm a Jewish mother. Hearing that is the nicest thing you could possibly say. That's so great.
Jamie, we act as if we didn't have things. We had plenty of things, plenty of bullying, so MTV. Kate Moss was showing girls to look like all the things that it always existed.
No sunblock. And believe me, so we could get on the whole millennial thing, but but I think, and that is a whole other topic. Believe me, when I graduated college, I'd rather live on the street than move home with my parents. That was
living with you, like taking your parents' money after the age of 22.
Not happening.
Is devastating, because this is not judgment. This is me loving that 22-year-old and saying, do not do that. Like live like dog shit. You'll be so much happier.
So much happier.
The amount of depression. Go ahead.
But now you can be an influencer and make millions of dollars.
Or Jane, because it's an important sentence, or 67,000, which is enough to get an apartment with two friends. Like, you know what I mean? Like, anyway, we're going in our tangent. All the hype through the years that we should be friends has been affirmed here. You dropped an F-bomb. You like football. We see a lot. I like it. Last thing, you a fan. What are you a fan of? From what brand has converted you to a fan?
Roblox. And I know you're talking to Barbara.
Yeah,
it's a game changer, literally, and I mean that literally. We're investing in it big time for LOL Surprise. It's community. It's everything. I'm so excited to watch that company and that brand, they've just done such a good job. They over-index on privacy and experience, and I can't say enough good things about Roblox.
Jamie, looking forward to more times together.
Thanks, Gary.
Andrea, put us two together. We need to be real friends.
And I'm going to send you some toys.
Please.
I'll send you swag.
I may sell them on eBay. I'm that kind of character. Okay, sorry. I just want to be transparent. Okay.
All about the flip. Next, we welcome Samantha Maltin, CMO of the Sesame Workshop, the nonprofit educational organization that sits behind Sesame Street. Samantha elevates Sesame Workshop's content and deepens brand engagement with consumers, partners, donors, and fans. Samantha brings 20 years of global experience in media and entertainment with major brands including History and Nickelodeon. She and her husband have 2 children who think Cookie Monster works in the office upstairs. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, Gary. It's been so long. It's so great to see you.
So good to see you. You can't even imagine. Literally my cheeks hurt when, it's been like 6-7 years. I just really like you a lot, and it's great to see you again. And you're sitting at the marketing helm of one of my favorite IPs and platforms in the world. So it's just great to see you again.
It's so great to see you. You know, I'm a huge fan of yours.
Thank you. So, again, what's been fun about the way Andrea and team set up this lineup, there are certain people that just naturally come in with fans, not just customers. And I would say this IP means that. But when you hear that the statement we're trying to do for today, which is how do we turn, customers into fans, how does that land in your mind, and how do you think about that?
Yeah, well, first of all, Sesame Workshop is a nonprofit, and most people don't know that. They just know Sesame Street, the show. So who's our customer? Children and families, right? And because we've been a successful, beloved brand for 50 years, we actually have 3 generations of Sesame Street fans. So we just actually finished a deep audience segmentation study, and we zoomed out. We looked at, who's our total addressable market. It's enormous. It's like 170 million people, but we really wanted to deeply understand who are those people, right? So not just parents of preschoolers, but who is more likely to stream our show, and who's more likely to donate. And then we looked at web behavioral data so that we could actually find distinct viable attributes to reach them, right? So second, what are we giving them? And you say this all the time, right? It comes down to great content. We could have the best marketing tactics in the world, and if the content isn't engaging, it doesn't matter. But our content is grounded in rigorous research to understand children's developmental needs and then the best ways to address those needs, all while engaging them in playful learning. But I think third, where we're reaching them. And as a nonprofit, this is where strategic partnerships are really critical for us, right? We depend on our distribution partners to get our content out. We depend on generous funding from our philanthropic partners to elevate our mission. And of course, we use our own platforms, right? We have a massive YouTube platform to reach kids. We have our social platforms to reach adults. And we go deep in communities with on-the-ground providers. But really, it's the collaborations that help us show up in unexpected places, like Super Bowl with our partnership with DoorDash. And that's really, I think that was powerful for us. But at the end of the day,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
How long have you been in the role?
It's about 1.5 years now.
What most surprised you? Because of course, like every other person watching this, you are aware of it. But what in that first 100 days were you like, oh, now I get it, or oh, I didn't expect that, or oh, this is so much more epic than I realized?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about the fans, right? It's about how our characters connect so deeply to people, and it's about how they move through our brand throughout their lifetime, right? Not just the brand touch points, but I mean, look at me, I'm a mom of preschoolers. Right now, I am living the brand day in and day out, and I have a relationship to this brand also as a fan myself from growing up with it. But what surprised me is how people stay with the brand, even as their kids age out of it. We have them for generations. And that's the most important thing for us, right? Because that's where we're cultivating their relationships with the brand and then getting them to give back and donate.
When you've obviously, and this is where we intermingled, like you've been around other entertainment IP, things of that nature. What do you think it takes for a business to really push over to the other side? Someone from casual to fandom, a fan, a fanatic. I remind people, fan is short for fanatic. Like that means, I think fanatic has a negative connotation, but like truly passion. What do you think are required to get there?
Look, I think it's about brand authenticity. I think it's about being real and giving your fans, all the parts of your fandom, right? We have so many different subsegments, what they're looking for, and giving them content that they connect with, right? For us, we're giving parents tools and resources to talk to their children about things that they are meaningful. We're providing, educational content to preschoolers, but for fans who might not even have children, we're connecting with them in a way that's meaningful to them. Like there was a tweet the other day from Cookie Monster. Yeah, there's a tweet the other day from Cookie Monster, and I was just reading some of the responses. It was like, me no cry because Cookie is finished. Me smile because it happened. And something like that. I started reading the comments and I was like tearing up. One woman was writing about how she lost someone really dear to her and that meant so much to her. It made her day. Like just being authentic.
Do you believe that this brand, what just hit me is like, right, I was about to say, how do you get there? But the reality is such a staggering amount of, at least American, I know it's an IP that goes global, society actually grew up with it, which means even at 12, 16, when you think you're too cool for school, Sesame Street has incredible potential to win on TikTok because everybody was touched by it, which means you don't have to wait until you're a parent of kids again. It's kind of always in play as an IP to get people to care.
Yeah. Look, we have 99% brand awareness. That's unbelievable. But it really is about being authentic and connecting with our different fan segments in the way that's most meaningful to them. So
Sam, talk to me about you as a human and fandom outside of the Sesame ecosystem. What in the last 1, 2, 3 years has struck you, has converted you from the casual to a fan? And what was the story behind that?
Look, I've been, in the last 5 years, I've gotten married, had 2 children, moved to the suburbs. So for me, I could barely getting a shower and waking, getting a shower and having a little bit of sleep, one night, full night sleep is amazing. No, but I mean, especially, during this pandemic, just seeing a sense of community and resiliency, is really what has struck me. In terms of, being a fan and a fan of brands, like for me, it's Costco, right? Like I can get my diapers, my Shiseido face cream, like all in one place. And they've made it incredibly easy during the pandemic to
curbside pickup
delivery, I don't have to go anywhere. It's to me that is what I'm sort of living and breathing right now. But I think just getting back to, to where we're going as a brand and what's next, I think, look at what's going on right now, right? We're living in unprecedented times. I think the world needs Sesame now more than ever. And it's become so clear to us that we need to help parents and caregivers be able to talk to their children about what's going on around them. I mean, the wave of racism, of xenophobia, the spike in anti-Asian hate, and we stand with our community there. Sesame Street was founded on the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's part of our DNA, and we feel this responsibility to help kids make sense of what's happening. So what's next for us? We're about to announce a major commitment to racial justice with a new educational framework, the ABCs of racial literacy, and really give content to families to help them talk to their children about race and identity. So that's what I'm super passionate about right now.
That's awesome. Sam, final parting shot. Any time in your career where you saw an adverse moment in the company turn into a place of opportunity that led to fandom? Anything come to mind?
Oh, an adverse moment turned to fandom.
You know what I think about, without to give you a couple more seconds to think, something doesn't land, but then self-deprecation or humor or accountability has been deployed, which then turns the tide of people that were most upset to maybe people that became huge advocates, or maybe being on the receiving end of that. Maybe in that Costco journey, they got the wrong shipment and the way they handle it. I think that we think a lot of times of like, I don't think people realize how the most negative moment is actually sometimes the moment that's most opened to doing something that can create fans. It's okay if there isn't. I was just curious if there was.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me to think of off the top of my head. For Sesame, I think I go back to, you know, the challenges that Sesame started to embrace, and I think, you know, I think that's where I go with our next initiative right now. That's what we're so focused on. I think we've faced that throughout the years, right? Sesame's always been on the cutting edge of sort of showing what kids' worlds look like all the time. And I think every single time we've been criticized, you know, we've embraced that and built it into our DNA.
Sam, it's so great to see you again. Continued
Oh, it's
success.
so nice to see you.
We'll talk soon.
Next up, we have Joey Gonzalez, the global CEO of Barry's, the original cardio and strength interval workout. Joey began his tenure at Barry's as a customer in 1997, and he became an instructor soon after, worked his way up, eventually becoming CEO in 2015. While continuing to teach class, Joey continues to grow the brand footprint domestically and internationally. Today, Barry's boasts over 74 studios and more than 150,000 engaged consumers a week. Welcome, Barry.
Or Joey.
Thank you.
I got that.
They always call me Barry. I answer to it.
Are you half the time Barry Gonzalez and half the time Joey?
I am.
I love that. Joey, did I hear that right? That you're still actually conducting classes while like being CEO? Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct.
I love that. Do you feel like, you know, I often talk about VaynerX's great competitive advantage is that I'm a practitioner of the content. Thus, my strategies and all this and the other thing are able to become real, tangible, and we're faster.
Yep.
You feel the fact that you're still in the trenches conducting those classes gives you a huge advantage to operate and see what's going on?
100%. I mean, I have the 4D experience, right? As a client, always taking classes. As an instructor, being in the red room, oftentimes with clients who have no idea that I'm the global CEO, which is amazing because then I really get to see all of our initiatives. Yeah, exactly. Taking place, what's working, what's not, why, rather than living in my glass tower and relying upon, you know, the feedback of people around me. And, you know, also as someone who's, you know, managing the business when I'm in studios, I'm behind the desk and I'm answering phones and continuing to have those touch points. And then obviously as CEO.
Joey, when you hear the premise of, you know, customers to fans, I feel like your category of the world, health and wellness, exercise, physical fitness, lends itself to that ability. And I know many people who've been obsessed with this brand and truly feel like fandom more than just like a good customer. How are you thinking about extending that? The brand's a little more mature now. It's in a different lifestyle. I love trying to get into the inside of that. Like, how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying, obviously, I was a fan of the brand, and I have a distinct advantage of having experienced that customer journey of first timer, what am I getting into here, to obsessed evangelist, right? So over the first 15 years of my tenure, I was really highly focused on recognizing and maintaining the two things that led to my own conversion, which number one was the product. You know, the best workout really in the world that I had ever done. Efficient, results driven, and then number two, this incredible feeling that I had of being a part of a community, or as we call it in Barry's, a family. But then potentially more importantly, I've actually focused on our areas of opportunity. So where could the brand go from here, right? And that's easy to see as well when you're a client. So improve the client experience, right? Premiumize the brand. When I joined as a client, there were there was one toilet in the studio that everybody had to share. And today, we have beautiful locker rooms and showers and amenities with Orbe hair care product and Dyson hair dryers.
Joey, I apologize. Vayner team, anybody in the Facebook page, there's a GaryV.gift spam bot right now trying to trick people into clicking the profile and winning money. So A, that is spam. B, can we stop them? Sorry, Joey, go ahead.
No problem. And then lastly, we've been expanding our community, obviously, through growth. And we're now across 14 countries around the world. So what used to be this sort of connection to a very small, close-knit West Hollywood community has become this sort of gateway to the world, to a global community of clients that have a lot in common with you. I'd say,
please go ahead.
Well, one of your, I think, questions to a lot of people today has been like, how does that translate into 2021? And I think lastly, but most importantly, we've become incredibly values focused, very socially responsible organization with our mission and our vision at the forefront always. And I think that this is the one piece that's helped us the most over the past year, given how unstable things have been for everybody on planet Earth.
Agreed. What do you have a sense of what triggered you into fandom, like really triggered you to that next place with the brand?
Yeah, I think it was the combination of, it was that journey of being really intimidated by the brand, then having the actual experience of showing up and not only enjoying it, but feeling embraced by, the front desk, feeling taken care of by the person next to me on the treadmill. So those are all the sort of elements of the experience that we've tried to preserve and actually enhance.
I love that. What about the ability to use digital for a business like this to advance people from, user, customer, occasionalist to that fandom? Is that something that you spend a lot of time thinking about? Think about your role, think about that business. My intuition, and I'm guessing, but I'm asking, is that must be a top of mind thought.
You're talking about through paid social, or are you talking about through our digital product?
What's funny, I'm less talking about the acquisition and awareness marketing side, but I'll be honest with you, I would also be thrilled if you took it there. I'm curious about when you have something that is physical, whether it's the app, whether it's an Alexa skill, whether it's virtual, just curious about the digitalization layer of turning people from customers to fans.
So I'd say one of the silver linings of the pandemic for us, like so many organizations, was that we had the opportunity and the time to rethink of ways in which we could invest and engage with our community, which resulted in a lot of different innovations. Like take, for example, our berries at home product, our berries outdoors product, of which we have several modalities, our berries open gym product, right? We just continued to sit back and innovate, which is one of our core values. And the berries at home was our first experiment with anything digital. And it undoubtedly highlighted a whole segment of the population who couldn't get to a physical studio, but was seeking that at-home workout with the personalized attention from instructors in an intimate setting. And one of the differentiators of berries and most of the digital experiences and platforms out there is that it's a many-to-many experience. So not only is the cam on me while I teach, the cam is on you while you take. And so I'm not just performing on a stage, I'm actually saying like, Gary, flatten your back, soften your knees. That's not a correct deadlift, blah, 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 and I'm engaging with everybody in class, and there's like a capacity on who can take class. So it's a much more hands-on premium experience. And we've seen, coming out of COVID, I think we can say that now, we are officially, beginning to come out of COVID.
How does that feel, by the way? Like the last 2-3 weeks, I'm like, wait a minute, is that light? Is that light?
It's like it's just like more and more good news keeps coming. So I'm just gonna,
yeah, exactly.
Just keep my fingers crossed. But we've seen various segments sort of come out, and one is like the population of people that has raced back to the red rooms and said goodbye to the digital experience. The second, which I think will be the majority, are those that are having the omnichannel experience, right? They are racing back to the red room, but 2 or 3 days a week, they're joining us on our at-home product.
I like
and
that.
Third, which I think is like the most exciting, is that we've created this segment, this population of people who become members that have never and may never live close to a Barry studio, but they're committed to being a part of this global community exclusively in this digital way.
Joey, sometimes Barry, thank you for being on the show, brother. Happy New Year.
All right, thank you. Have a great one.
Last up, we welcome Jill Kress, Head of Growth Marketing at PayPal and Venmo, where she increases consumer acquisition and engagement. Prior to joining PayPal, Jill was CMO of National Geographic and a top leader at MasterCard. A fun fact, Jill has celebrated an annual pilgrimage to Rio until the pandemic hit. And she lives by her motto, start by starting. Welcome, Jill.
Jill, how are you?
I'm great, Gary. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm well. First, I like looking at your background. I'm like, oh, she should NFT those paintings. They're so awesome. I love that.
It's all about the NFT. That's right.
Oh God, it's everywhere. Jill, let's just go first into the question. You know, obviously PayPal and Venmo brand. How are you thinking about, or when a question like this is posed to you, how are you growing your customers into fans in 2021? Any emerging technologies? Any overall strategies? How do you approach that at your level?
Yeah, so we've got these two amazing platforms, PayPal, which is global, 370 million users around the world, and then Venmo at nearly 70 million users. And you know, the activity that has played out on these platforms over the last year since we've been in the pandemic has been a huge inspiration for how we build community, because we start to see all this use. And it's really looking at how we're enabling what matters to people, right? You know, the way that they stayed connected to friends they cared about, people they cared about, causes they cared about, the giving that took place on the platform. And so it was through all of these use cases that we started to see ways in for PayPal to bridge the gap between digital commerce and physical commerce, and launching things like QR code across both PayPal and Venmo. On Venmo, we've seen that, Venmo, it's all about the emojis, right? So, we started to see all these really great trends. In March of last year, we saw the mask emoji increase by 375%, right? So you see how relevant and contextual the interaction is on that platform. And then we saw people taking care of each other, right? Like sending money to their baristas or frontline workers. And we saw just more commerce playing out. And so we have accelerated activity to allow users to do more with Venmo. So you're going to see Venmo commerce, enabling small businesses on the platforms. It's right. So it's like just extending, the fun, inclusive nature of Venmo into the commerce space, bringing large enterprises like CVS on board to accept PayPal and Venmo's QR code. So it's really understanding like what is the job that these platforms are doing for our users? How can we do more of it? And then how do we celebrate why it matters to the user and kind of step back from our role and celebrate our role as an enabler? Like, it's not about PayPal, it's not about Venmo, it's about how you use it.
How do you get people to consume that celebration? Because to your point, I see a lot of companies evolve and have gotten to that thoughtful place of like, look, we're a tool. And what's far more interesting than the story of like how our pipes work is the empowerment of, right? When you think about telling those stories in a 2021 way, where do you think about the creative format provided and needed to get people to actually give a crap? Because I think it's a huge issue of like customers to fans is the creative variable. And then even to that point, the distributions, you're a very advanced company. How do you think about your media mix of like outdoor sponsorship, television, OTT, social, digital? Thoughts on that? Because we haven't touched on that a lot, and I'm an admirer of your career, and I'm curious of your perspective on that.
Yeah, all of that plus in a really powerful way across our platforms, our owned access, and how does that experience come across to the user? So we've taken a ton of inspiration from the use cases that have played out. So in our content over the last year, you've seen us really highlighting how PayPal and Venmo has served our users. So we did our kind of first ever hero anthem during COVID, and it was a nod to all the jobs that the platform was doing. So during COVID, we started to see a lot of emojis playing out around like bread, right? And we started to see notes like bread for bread. And we look at that and say, like, what's happening here? And it was actually kind of this craze around sourdough starters and people paying each other for bread. So, we worked that into our hero film of, how communities were coming together to just like get food on the table. And, we saw incredible rise of home care, personal care goods, hair dye, dog grooming, shears. And so we just started to like focus in on all those fun, unique ways that consumers are using the platform. And we created all sorts of content, right? Like we had, a lot of mid-funnel content that just showed those fun ways. And then we tried
explain mid-funnel, Jill, for all the non-marketing nerds like you and I.
Yeah, so a lot of digital content that you'd see across like publisher platforms, lots of focus on social, and using that to drive demand and consideration for our products.
Please.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to just go back to your question, Gary, I mean, we were at the, for the first time, we found ourselves in out of home to drive awareness around our in-store solutions. Like that was a big pivot, right? As consumers were not wanting to touch money, we moved into the physical acceptance space with QR codes. And so we entered back into out of home in big urban markets where, you have proximity.
Were you concerned about people staying indoors during that time of that media spend? I'm sure that ran through your mind, right? Like if you're buying a billboard during COVID, you just have to assume that their pricing structure, obviously I'm sure you've negotiated, but like, there was obviously a lot more people indoors at unprecedented levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we actually did really well with our out of home impact. So we did it in a way where we were able to isolate. We did a bunch of geo-testing to see like what was the impact of out of home on top of lots of digital, lots of social, and all the performance. PayPal is a performance marketing engine, as you can imagine.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right. So it was a good brand offset, right?
And we saw awareness and consideration and, really increase in those markets where we had it. So, consumers were, we were strategic in where we placed it. Yeah.
Jill, before we let you go and wrap up the show, you as a customer, which brand has been able to penetrate you, Jill, the human, not the marketer, and turn you from a user or customer into an advocate that became fan-like?
Across PayPal and Venmo?
Nope.
Two brands that I look after? Oh, okay.
No, you living your life.
As a human.
Yeah. Nike, McDonald's, Sears, I'm just bringing up the classic icon. But like, has a brand caught you in the last 2 or 3 years and really surprised and delighted you or made you a fan?
So I have been an avid member of the SoulCycle community and I loved that physical experience. My affection has wavered towards Peloton, and it's been an interesting experience to see like how that digital-led brand and the way that they were able to really foster community versus SoulCycle, which was born out of community, but was very much around that physical experience. And God love them. They're trying really hard to make it work as they, get their digital experience up and running. But, it's the first, we all have to work out, right? I love to have my glass of wine. I have to offset it somehow. And so SoulCycle was the thing that got me to love working out, right? I do it 5-6 days a week. I still do. I've got one in the basement. But I've had a Peloton as well. And I think their community experience is something that we can all take a page from.
Jill, I really appreciate having you on. I hope you have a great spring. And thanks for sharing your insights.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. And that's it, Andrea.
Thanks, Gary. And thanks everybody for joining us. Next show, April 15th from 12 to 2, will be focused on what's the future of music, audio, and sonic in 2021. We've got a pretty awesome lineup. The one and only Kara Swisher, One Republic's Ryan Tedder, and Clubhouse's newest joiner, Fadia, in addition to a long list of really fantastic brands. So please continue to follow us on #MarketingForTheNow and check out our past recordings and info on Marketing for the Now on VaynerX.com. We hope to hear from you soon.
Thanks for having me, everybody. Make sure you register, as you can see on the scroll down here. The next, you do not want to miss the audio episode. I think for a lot of you that I'm seeing in the comments, it will be an impactful one. mftn.vaynerx.com. Make sure you absolutely sign up. We'll see you next time. Thanks for being on. Hit me up on Twitter with your thoughts on today's show. See ya.